The world's greatest mysteries of science and history. You're watching the MHS Network.
Welcome, guys, to the MHS Network. My name is Byron, and here with me today, I have a fantastic guest. She is a former Army counterintelligence officer, a college instructor, and a member of the nonprofit Case Breakers, Jen Bucholtz. Jen, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey Byron, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, of course, the Case Breakers have been in the news a lot this past week as they public with their research and findings into the Zodiac Killer case. Can you tell me a little bit about what started leading the Zodiac Killer or the Case Breakers into the Zodiac Killer case?
Well, it's not a case that we ever went after or had any intent of going after. It actually was brought to us, or I guess to me initially. There's a news reporter by the name of Dale Julin who was working at a news station in California. And a couple of years ago, he reached out to me because I'd written an article about behavioral analysis as it applies to homicide investigation. And I'd mentioned Zodiac in that article. So he reached out to me and told me he'd been, for the last 5 years or so, doing some in-depth research into Zodiac and had actually written a book manuscript. And he wanted me to read it and provide my feedback. And naturally, I was skeptical, as everybody is right now. There's been hundreds of people around the world, I think, over time who have thought they figured out who the Zodiac Killer was. But, within a few weeks, I sat down and read it. And I would say by the halfway point of his manuscript, I was pretty much like, wow, he figured this out. He's got the guy. Everything's falling in place and this totally makes sense. So that's how it initially came to me. And then I brought it, through several. It took a while to get in touch with the Case Breakers because I didn't even know they existed at the time. But through my employer, American Military University, I eventually got in touch with Tom Colbert, who's the head of the Case Breakers, and asked him to review the manuscript. And he did the same thing I did. He read it all in one sitting and he called me. He's like, "Oh my gosh, Jen, he's got it. Dale figured it out." And I said, "Okay, I'm glad that you affirmed my feeling. That's exactly what I thought after reading it."
And you mentioned Tom Colbert and the Case Breakers. They, of course, were huge in the news a few years ago when they got involved with the D.B. Cooper case. They had a History Channel special, I'm pretty sure, written about them. So they're not amateurs when it comes to Case Breakers.
Right.
Not to mention every member of the Case Breakers, extremely qualified. We're talking multiple PhDs,
Yeah.
multiple master's degrees. CSI, FBI, a few people, Department of Defense. So, like, Case Breakers, they're qualified individuals. So them being into this case, very reputable.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, on the DB Cooper thing, there's a 5-part documentary coming out next year that'll be detailing all the work that Tom and his team of investigators did on that case. So
Fantastic.
look for that.
I look forward to that. And then that manuscript, you were on the Mysterious Circumstances podcast. You said that you don't have an official date for that, but we're hoping in the near future for that.
I sure hope so, because everybody, of course, is asking me, when can we get Dale's book? When can we read it? I want to pre-order it. And, it's at the editors now. That's all I know, honestly. I don't think any official publication date has been chosen or able to be chosen quite yet because of the editing process.
Fantastic. So that's, of course, that's the piece of evidence that not only gets you involved in the case, but gets the Case Breakers involved in the case.
Yeah.
What would you say is the most convincing piece of evidence, or probably the most solid piece of research that your team was able to dig up through research and through interviews?
Again, I have to defer to Dale on most of this because he's really the one who did all the legwork over the last 7+ years. We came on board, a year and a half ago, and we've collected additional information about Gary Francis Poste, who is, we think, the top suspect at this point. But it's really, I have to give credit to Dale for all the work that he did. What convinced me is that he realized that all the taunting letters that Zodiac had sent to the police and media were actually anagrams, meaning you needed to take the letters from those messages and rearrange them into the actual, to reveal the actual message that Zodiac was trying to convey.
Oh, wow.
But the only way to do that properly is if you have a cipher key. and the cipher key is his full name. And since he was never a suspect at any point or even looked at, nobody even, would have thought to use his name to decode those letters.
Which is why at one point he provides his name in the Z13.
Yeah, I mean, his name is in every taunting letter, in each of those anagrams. It's in all of them, and that's part of what convinced me. And I get that. Okay, I can, Jennifer Bucholtz, I can probably find the letters of my name in some of those anagrams. But the thing is, you could take the letters of my name out or your name out, but you're not going to be left with the proper set of letters that's going to reveal the message that he was conveying. And so Dale decrypted a majority of those letters over the course of 4 or 5 years, like I said, and actually got navigational directions to an evidence site. And that was the linchpin for me in this manuscript that convinced me that, Poste must have been the one who committed these murders and sent those letters and, put these anagrams together.
Right, and so let's talk about Poste here because he's of course the leading suspect for or the suspect that your team puts forward along with Dale. The piece of evidence that when the mainstream media writes about the press release and about your team's research, they always seem to lead in with this piece of evidence, even though I think it's probably the least compelling piece of evidence there is. Going into the forehead scarring on Gary Poste and the wrinkles that it looks like are made in the sketch. Can you talk about that? Like, why do you think the mainstream media articles, specifically the Fox News one, open up and like lead with that piece of evidence?
I really don't know. I mean, yeah, that was one little detail that we came across over time and finding some of these, older photos of photos of Poste when he was older. But obviously that's extremely circumstantial, and that is not at all what we're basing our findings on. It's just something that also fell in place with regards to him being Zodiac. Yeah, he was in a bad car wreck when he was in the Air Force and had a DUI and actually killed a fellow airman in that crash. And he himself was badly injured, had a traumatic brain injury, and spent several weeks in the hospital. And that's where those, forehead scars came from, was that wreck. But we're certainly not putting all our eggs in a basket because of some, markings on somebody's skin. That's right. Not at all what we're going on. And I don't know why the media latched onto that. It's kind of a shame because I keep having to explain it away. But I think once the more solid evidence comes out, people will understand where we're coming from.
And of course, your most solid evidence is going to come from your interviews. You have that whistleblower by the name of Will that that according to him was a part of the Poste criminal posse, was supposedly very close to Poste, and has potentially provided a location that weapons or ammunition were stored. Can you give me an update on that and like how that's going?
Right. So if Will's recollection is correct, he knows the location of where Gary Poste supposedly buried some ammunition and weapons that were used in the commission of some of the Zodiac crimes. We could go and retrieve those. Okay, don't get me wrong, but the problem is we want a badged law enforcement officer with us because they are, representative of the law and can legally collect evidence, bag it and transfer it to a, forensic or ballistic lab for testing. If we go and do that ourselves, even if we, do this and have a cameraman and everything, there's still a much higher risk of this evidence being ruled inadmissible if it ever goes to a court of law. We are not badged law enforcement officers, and although we know how to adhere to the chain of custody, we're just not in the official position to where we should be handling hard evidence. That's law enforcement's job. That is something we've been trying to get them to do in tandem with us for months. And this is one reason we had to go to the media, because we were not getting any cooperation from them.
Right. And of course, the release of the press release, not only was the pressure police to cooperate in helping you guys actually gather evidence, but also you talk about the Riverside Police Department has DNA evidence for the killer of Sherry Jo Bates, who
Yes.
is not officially a canonical killing of the Zodiac Killer, but is rumored to be and was believed by the FBI in 1975 to have been a Zodiac Killer or a Zodiac victim. So this was an attempt to put pressure on them with the media attention that the press release has gotten, and with the public attention that this everything that you've released has gotten. Have you seen any movement from the police department's official stance? Have you guys been able to get a better communication with them, get them in a better place, or do you have an update there for us?
The answer is no. They're digging their feet in and continuing to tell the media that they are 100% confident that Sherry Jo Bates' murder has nothing to do with the Zodiac homicides. Well, that's a completely invalid statement, an impossible statement really to make, because we don't yet know for sure who Zodiac was. So you don't know whether her murder was connected or not. The FBI, not only the FBI, felt that her murder was connected, but actually, we just found these memos in the last couple of days. Actually, the police chief, who was chief of the Riverside PD at the time Sherry was killed, also put in a memo that he felt she may have been a Zodiac victim, and reached out to agencies in the San Francisco area back in 1969 after the other Zodiac murders occurred up there, asking them to take a look at Sherry's case as well, and considering, looking at, or taking into consideration that she may have been a victim of Zodiac. So now you've got two law enforcement agencies, from several decades ago, granted, but who felt that her murder may be connected. And what's really just egregious, in my opinion, in this situation right now with Riverside, is that they apparently retrieved an unknown foreign DNA sample off of Sherry's clothing in 2017. We're trying to find out if that was submitted to CODIS to see if there was a DNA match in the system, but it's not sounding like it was. And to me, that's just a massive failure on their behalf. If that's the case, if they've got this unknown DNA sample, why aren't you entering that into CODIS at a minimum? Every victim deserves answers. So I don't understand why they would hold on to that. But, on top of that, they're saying, no, case breakers are totally wrong. We know that this murder is not connected to Poste and all this. And it's like, okay, then prove us wrong. Do the DNA comparison of what you have and compare it to Poste DNA, which we have at Vallejo PD, and prove us wrong. We're fine with that. We're seeking answers here. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of on a soapbox, but
oh no, you're
ultimately we're just after the answers in this case.
Right, like your team is looking for justice, right? You want justice
Yes.
for the victims and for the people who've been seeking this answer for so many years.
Yeah.
The police have to do the bare minimum, and they're not even doing the bare minimum
That's
here.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Like you said, we're just after justice and answers, and that's it. That's why we volunteer our time to do this. And every victim deserves justice. So I don't know what the future holds with Riverside, but they're going to have to answer for their non-action at some point.
Right, and the real meat and potatoes of the press release, what I found most compelling was how you guys were able to find at least circumstantial evidence linking Gary Poste to Sherry Jo Bates. The fact that he was a printer and there was a military watch and he was in the military, he was staying in a hospital 15 minutes away. I even thought I'd read in the Mysterious Circumstances podcast, you mentioned potentially at one point he may have even mentioned that he killed Sherry Jo Bates.
Yeah, he took credit for her murder. And I don't think, and he didn't take, well, I shouldn't phrase it like that, but I don't think he's the type of person that's going to take credit if he didn't actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's part of my behavioral analysis piece on this whole thing. But yeah, he took credit for it. Like you said, the killer in that case lost their wristwatch during the scuffle, and the watch found was, military style, bought at a PX, and had paint spatter on it. And at the time of that murder, Gary had started his house painting business. And like you said, he was getting treatment in a hospital 15 minutes away. So that's like 3 or 4 pieces of pretty strong circumstantial evidence right there.
Right.
And to me, that would be plenty if I was the police chief of Riverside to at least take a look at Poste as possibly being Sherry's killer.
Right. Even like you don't even have to say, okay, we're going to investigate him as the Zodiac. You can just say, we're going to investigate
Yeah.
him as Sherry Joe Bates's
Yes.
killer.
Yes.
And if we can confirm at least that, then like at least we
Yeah.
have some justices happen. From there,
Yeah.
everyone else can kind of figure out where we go from there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it actually comes down to a pretty simple DNA comparison that could answer like 20 questions right now that everybody has. And like you said, either confirm or deny Poste's involvement, or him being the killer of Sherry. And if he's not, fine, then we go on our way and we work through the other victims that he killed, and try to come up with this other forensic evidence to tie him to those. Or again, we're not trying to make him a suspect. He's made himself the suspect, but we don't care if we're wrong. Again, we're after the answers. So that's our whole goal.
And then let's focus back on Gary Poste here. I let it go off there a bit. Recently, MHS, we discussed with friend of the show, Drew Beeson. He's an author, kind of looked into the Zodiac case a lot. He postulates that the Zodiac would have had to have been extremely intelligent in terms of mathematics, between the ciphers and the anagrams and everything. Like, he would have had to have been extremely intelligent and specifically had a deep knowledge of mathematics. Was that something Gary Poste had? Was he known for being a very intelligent person, a very mathematical person?
I mean, I can't really speak to his overall intelligence level, but what I do know is when he joined the Air Force, his job was, he was a radar man. He stared at a radar screen, and for much of his career, and that specific job entails being trained in cryptology.
Okay.
And the type of cryptology that he used in his anagram letters, particularly when he was stationed in Greenland at Toole Air Force Base, which is above the distant early warning line. Their whole job up there is watching the radar screen to ensure that Russia is not sending their trying to, or I should say, try to send their troops our way. But in order to communicate with the other stations along that distant early warning line, they would use crypto. But back then it wasn't automated like it is now. They had to actually kind of create the crypto themselves in order to share messages and information. And from what I've been told by some of the other members of the case breakers who also have the same type of training, it matches up perfectly with these codes and anagrams that he created and sent in to police.
Okay, so that would also explain how he would have experience using the graph paper to make the ciphers, which is something Drew Beeson has also talked about. Do the case breakers believe that they have solved any of the ciphers, right? So Dale has specifically solved or potentially solved the anagrams. Do the case breakers believe they have solutions for the rest of the ciphers that haven't been solved, like the Z13 and the Z32?
I'm not going to speak to that at this time.
Okay.
But like I said before, and Dale's done most of the work on the anagrams, which when I'm referring to the anagrams, it's all the taunting letters. I think there was 18 taunting letters that he sent to police or media. The majority of those have been decrypted. Now, the big one that we're working on is the 340 cipher, which you probably heard me explain this to Justin on the other podcast the other day, but last year, 3 gentlemen did decrypt that after 50 years, and kudos to them for their work on that. I mean, my gosh. The thing is, it has to be decrypted one more time. It is another anagram. You will find the letters of Gary's name in the last third. You will find a song lyric. I'm not going to say which one. You will find a song lyric in the first third, and that matches up perfectly with his pattern on all these anagrams. That's part of his MO. But Dale mostly has been diligently working on it since December, and I've pseudo tried to help him. I think I'm more of a hindrance than I am a help. So that's the one he's working on now. And by the way, if there's any like anagram whizzes out there, take a crack at it, please, because we would love if somebody would help solve this so we can figure out what the actual message is in that 340 cipher.
And you mentioned the team that solved the Z340 last year. David Orenchak was part of that team. He has been probably one of your most vocal skeptics, I would say, so far towards case breakers. Do you have plans to maybe see if he can help since they did solve the Z340? Have you reached out to them to
Yeah.
see if they could help you try and break down the anagram that is the Z340, or are you able to speak to that?
Honestly, that's out of my lane. I mean, that will be Tom Colbert's call as to who else he might bring on to help with the rest of these. So I can't. Again, I don't have a good answer for you on that one. I don't know what that plan is, and nor have we even had time to sit down and talk about the Zodiac case since the news broke last week. So unfortunately I don't have a good answer for you on that one right now.
Okay. I have one last question here, and it's a question that my partner Coleman has been pushing me a lot to ask you. And it
Okay.
actually, like, it hasn't really, it's not something we've touched on a lot, but it comes from the pictures, right, that you released with the press release. He is like obsessed with the picture marked 1980s selfie in hood for silhouetted picture. Um, do you guys have more pictures available, or do you guys have more pictures that like your team is holding on to for right now, that show more footage or more shots of him potentially in the hood or more silhouette shots like that? Or can you talk more about like how you got those pictures and stuff like that?
I don't think I'm at liberty to reveal the source of those photos or how those were retrieved at this point. What I will say is yes, we have many more photos, but I'm not again at liberty to go into great detail on what those photos are of or what they show at this point.
Okay. And then, so of course, the case is not necessarily at a standstill, right? But we're at a point now where we're waiting for police to
Yeah.
partner with your team to help you gather evidence, to put you or to give you information not only concerning the DNA, but concerning the potential hiding spot of the weapons and all sorts of information like that. Will the next press release be not be until after they team with you, or is there potentially another press release before they team with you with more information?
Um, that's actually a really good question. I think it, and I don't know the answer to that either. I mean, it's going to depend on what law enforcement ends up doing, or I guess not doing. Again, we wanted them to take our information and run it down, research it, follow the leads, go find the weapons, whatever, and then do a press release. Like this is not how we originally wanted this to go down. But like I said, our hand kind of got forced because we're not at exactly a standstill, because especially now we have many people approaching us that knew Gary Poste. So that's really helpful, but also that's not going to prove that he was Zodiac or not.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we are kind of at a standstill in terms of the hard evidence. But I can't make any prediction right now on whether, what Tom's plan is going to be in terms of future press releases. I guarantee there will be some. I just don't know exactly when or, what information they're going to contain.
Right. And then from here, how can people support your team right now? How can people get involved and like help produce justice at this point?
So if you go to thecasebreakers.org, and you have to put thecasebreakers.org, you can check out some of the cases we're working on. You'll see, like, I'm working on an unsolved case out of Texas right now. You'll see some coverage that I've had and written and produced on that case. You can check out the bios for all the team members. And we also have a page where if you have a tip about any case, sorry, I have a fly in here. If you have a tip about any case, we have a form on the website that you can fill out and submit your information. It's kept strictly confidential, so your name's never going to be released or anything like that. And people who are interested in volunteering, they can also put in a request to be a volunteer. We're accepting requests at the moment, and that's literally all that we can do is put everybody's request into a spreadsheet, because we've had hundreds. And once things calm down, we'll be able to start going through those requests and bring more people on board, because ideally we'd like to have teams of case breakers all over the country that can collaborate with these law enforcement agencies and assist them. We're not trying to step on their toes or redo their investigation, but we have extra time and skills and experience that we can offer, that can be beneficial to them. So that would be, and I mean, we are a nonprofit. We do accept donations. None of us takes a salary. None of us, not even Tom. Donations right now are just being banked for future probably travel reimbursement and things like that. But people are welcome to make a donation if they would like to do that. So those are the several ways that people can help support us. And, just spreading the word about us too.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure to link down below in the description all of their website information, all the different links that they need. I'll also link to your Twitter so that people can follow you and keep up with the case that way. Thank you, Jennifer, for coming on. We are so grateful for not only you coming on, but what your team is doing, and the justice hopefully soon you'll be able to help deliver to the victims and their families.
Absolutely. Thank you for your support and your kind words. We really appreciate it.